This is looking towards Times Square, which has been a busy part of the city today. Boy, a lot of workers were forced to get out of their buildings in a hurry after a building that is in the process of being renovated and changed from an office building to residential. They had to stop work on that after some of the beams inside could be seen buckling after people had raised concerns just from street side about a building that looked like it was sort of leaning and a little bit off kind of thing. You probably wouldn't trust yourself if you saw it, but it turned out, in fact, to be true. They are in the process of shoring up that building as we speak. We heard that they do have workers inside now. They're going to work through the night. I mean, how long this is going to take to make sure this is structurally sound probably take some time. You want to be better safe than sorry on that front. And to talk with us a little bit more about this is Professor Hanlon. She's the former president of the Adroit School of Architecture, and she's the current commissioner of the American Board of Architecture, and she's the founder of Gradium, who has personally taught structural design to more than 20,000 students throughout the nation. Professor Hanlon, we appreciate you being with us. Thanks so much.
Thank you for having me.
All right, so we've got this graphic behind you, this full screen, which is your work product. We want to be clear, but this sort of walks us through exactly what we're looking at in connection to what happened earlier today. So this is an interesting project because I think we know a number of these projects are underway throughout the cities, these conversions from office buildings to residential. And basically what they're doing here is they're adding like 15 or 20 floors on top of an existing office building, correct?
No, Steve, what we know that this is a type 1A construction. According to the building code, that's a steel frame. That's the strongest you can get, the tallest you can get, but it is built on the 1970 codes. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean those are, not equivalent to today. That somewhat is a strong building, but it's designed for 34 floors. And if you add 3 more stories and then on top of that, a penthouse, you're essentially adding 25% more load than it was originally designed for. Now, we'll have, the research is going on to see if it was a design error or a change in the field or a construction error. And essentially what they're gonna have to do for the collapse that's happening nearest the weakest, nearest portion of the building, which is the structural irregularities, the corners that I pointed out here. That's where we traditionally see collapse happen, is the nearest structural irregularities. And then anything above that will start sagging, which is what it is doing. So they'll have to go in there, add additional supports for the buckled columns, crank up the building with hydraulics and then continue the repairs of the building. So it's not that it's not salvageable because it hasn't completely collapsed. We have buckling, but it is obviously a concern, and investigation needs to be, conclude who's responsible.
And as someone with a great deal of knowledge on this exact topic, who spent years teaching and learning about it, I mean, when you saw the first, news of this happen, were you like, oh, wow, this is a textbook example of this? Or, what were your first thoughts when you saw the footage that started to come out earlier this morning?
Well, when I teach class, every professor, structural professor, talks about the 1981 Hyatt Regency walkway collapse as a structural design flaw due to a change in the field. And I immediately thought of that. I said, oh, this is another one of those we don't know what the real reason is, but it could be a change during construction because architectural design is so heavily vetted in the building department inspections that it's unlikely that it has to be something that happened within the field is what I immediately thought.
You mean it has to be something like the work somehow was not carried out properly based on the designs that were approved by the people in charge of that stuff?
Seeing how many violations the developers have is points a red flag, but also could be a change that was made that wasn't properly vetted by the engineer or by the building department, or just something was just missed, because everyone's human, there's human error. But that's why we have so much back checks in the architecture field and in design field to avoid this kind of an issue.
This is the type of project, this company that is behind it's called Metro Loft, and they convert these old office buildings into residential, which, seems to have a lot of promise from the sense of we have all these old, outdated office buildings that really aren't in demand with customers anymore. So we've got these empty office towers, and of course we don't have enough housing. So this is one of those sort of projects that it's hoped could, help make a dent in our need for housing in the city. How many, are you aware, this is something I know it's going on in the financial district, other parts of the city that used to be primarily business and now have more of a residential element to them as well. Like, there's probably a lot of similar projects to this going on in the city right now, I would imagine as well.
Well, adaptive reuse is a very common thing, and of course, everyone encourages it because we don't want sprawl. We have these buildings that are not being, that underutilized or not being used, and we do have a housing crisis. So it makes sense to do adaptive reuse, which is converting an existing building from what was original uses to housing. And office buildings are built stronger, or equivalent, with the amount of partitions that there are, and so it makes sense to convert it to housing. It's a easy conversion in terms of structural. It's already built robustly. So but like with the violation that the developer has had, it seems like it's pointing to something that was done on the field. With the 25% additional load, I mean, you can say, was the engineering calculations, were they done correctly to account for the additional floors that were added? But it's a classic book case of the irregularities being right there, the weak points in the structure being so close to those floors where the buckling happened. So it just makes sense that you could have predicted that would be the failure, where the failure would begin. Now they're seeing beams sagging on the upper floor, so they're also struggling to hold on to the weight of those stories that were added on.
How big of a project is this to get this thing stabilized till everyone can feel good about people returning to the buildings nearby, do you think?
Well, around the buildings, it doesn't seem like there's that much damage. In terms of this building, I mean, there's going to be a lot of money spent, obviously, to correct it, but it's not unsalvageable. You can salvage this. With the amount of damage that we're at least seeing from the images in the news media, it doesn't look like it's an utter collapse. So it is salvageable. It just will be an expense and there'll be fines, but I don't think it'll be a big impact in the area in terms of a negative impact.
All right, we shall see. Professor Hanlon, we appreciate your perspective. That's an interesting scenario a lot of people woke up to this morning. Kind of frightening to be ordered out of work in a hurry like that because of a structural issue with this building, which is under construction. We appreciate it. Thanks so much.
All right, thank you so much. Take care.
All right, and we'll be right back with more Newsroom Live at 2.